Here's a fun problem that caught my eye. We have this expression, n minus 1 factorial divided by n squared plus n, and we're taking the floor of it. The challenge is to prove that no matter what positive integer n we choose, this floor value will always be an even number. Let's start by getting a feel for this expression. The best way to build intuition is often to simplify what we're looking at and try some concrete examples. So here's our expression. We've got n minus 1 factorial in the numerator and n squared plus n in the denominator. Now, whenever I see something like n squared plus n, my first instinct is to factor it. There's clearly an n we can pull out. And there we have it, n times n plus 1. This already looks much cleaner. Now let's try plugging in some small values. Sometimes the pattern becomes clear just by computing a few examples. What's happening here is pretty clear. In all these cases, we're dividing a small number by a larger number, so our fraction is less than 1. So the floor of each of these fractions is 0, and 0 is definitely even. The statement checks out for these small values. But of course, we cannot just check every positive integer one by one. We need a general argument that works for all larger values of n. Let's start with an interesting special case that'll give us some insight into the underlying structure. What if both n and n plus 1 happen to be composite numbers? This might seem like a very specific case, but it'll help us see what's really going on. We're going to need a beautiful fact from number theory. Now, this isn't true for every composite number. For instance, it fails when m is 4, but it works for composite numbers that are at least 6. The proof is quite elegant. Since m is composite, we can write it as a times b, where both a and b are bigger than 1 but smaller than m. If a and b are different, then both of them show up somewhere in the factorial m minus 1 factorial. Since the factorial contains both factors, it must be divisible by their product. What if a equals b? Then m is a perfect square, and since we're assuming m is at least 6, a has to be at least 3. Now here's the key insight. If a is at least 3, then 2a is definitely less than a squared. So both a and 2a appear in the factorial, which means the factorial is divisible by a times 2a. But that's more than enough to guarantee it's divisible by a squared, which is our m. So if both n and n plus 1 are composite and at least 6, our lemma tells us that n divides n minus 1 factorial, and n plus 1 divides n factorial. Now, we need n plus 1 to divide, and minus 1 factorial too. Here's where a classic number theory trick comes in handy. Since consecutive integers are always coprime, they share no common factors. If n plus 1 divides the product n times n minus 1 factorial, it must divide n minus 1 factorial itself. Beautiful. Now we have both n and n plus 1 dividing n minus 1 factorial. Since they're coprime, their product n times n plus 1 must divide it too. So in this special case where both n and n plus 1 are composite, our expression is definitely an integer. But we still need to show it's even. The approach we just saw is nice, but it only works when both numbers are composite. What we really need is a method that handles all cases. And for that, we're going to count factors of 2. Here's the idea. If we can show that our fraction always has more factors of 2 in the numerator than in the denominator, then the fraction itself must be even, which means its floor is even too. To compare the number of factors of 2, we look at how many times 2 divides the numerator, minus how many times it divides the denominator. For counting factors of 2 in factorials, there's this wonderful formula called Legendre's formula. It gives us a systematic way to get a good lower bound. For the denominator, the most factors of 2 we could possibly have is roughly log base 2 of n plus 1. That's our upper bound. Let's see if we can get away with using just the first term from Legendre's formula for our lower bound. But when we test this at n equals 6, we get 2 on the left and about 2.8 on the right. That's not going to work. Okay, we need to be a bit more careful. Let's include the second term from Legendre's formula to get a better bound. Much better. Now at n equals 6, we get 2 plus 1 equals 3 on the left, and that's definitely bigger than 2.8. So our inequality works here. But wait, just because it works for n equals 6 doesn't mean it works for everyone. We need to think about what happens as n gets larger. Let's call the left side L of n and the right side R of n, and think about how they grow. Here's the key insight. L of n grows roughly like 3/4 times n, so it grows linearly. But R of n grows logarithmically, which is much, much slower. I mean, R of n doesn't even hit 4 until n is around 15. So once L overtakes R, which it does by n equals 6, the gap just keeps growing. Linear growth always wins against logarithmic growth in the long run. And there we have it. We've shown that for all n at least 6, the numerator has more factors of 2 than the denominator. What this means is that our fraction a has at least one factor of 2 that we can pull out. So a looks like 2 to some positive power times a fraction of odd numbers. That wraps up the case for large n. So let's step back and see what we've accomplished. We tackled this problem by splitting it into two cases. For small values of n, the expression is less than 1, so its floor is 0, which is even. For larger values, we use this elegant argument about counting factors of 2 to show that the expression always has enough factors of 2 to guarantee an even floor. And that's our proof. Pretty neat how the structure of factorials and this careful counting of factors of 2 came together to solve the problem. Thanks for sticking with me through this proof. If you enjoyed exploring the beautiful connections between factorials, number theory, and even integers, please give this video a like and subscribe for more mathematical adventures.